Today, on Pat's Car Garage, we sit in a half-empty Mercedes, and the point of all this is to remove the dashboard to get access to the vacuum pods, which control the vents for the air conditioning. Now, you might notice that I'm quite a bit ahead of the game here, so I'm going to explain exactly what needs to be done to actually remove the dashboard, and what is optional, and also where you can find the resources to remove these things, because I filmed everything. So just in case you haven't been keeping up with my latest videos, well, here's what you need to do. You have to remove the instrument cluster, first of all, because there's wires that plug into it, obviously. So you have to remove that. The steering wheel is optional. If you're a patient person, you can remove the dashboard without removing the steering wheel. However, just for easiness, you remove the steering wheel. It's not terribly hard. I also have a video on that. If you decide to remove the steering wheel to make your life a little bit easier, of course that means removing the airbag, which means you have to turn the battery, you have to unplug the battery, preferably both ends, and leave it unplugged for, as long as you can. Leave it unplugged overnight, because the last thing you want is an airbag blowing up in your face. Okay, so of course, removing the air vents isn't strictly speaking necessary, but you do have to remove the tweeters. So the tweeters, you just pop those off. Again, I explain how to remove those at the same time as in the same video as removing the instrument cluster, because you can actually go through here and push back on the instrument cluster. That's the easiest way to remove it. So you don't have to remove the air vent on the other side, but you do have to remove the tweeter. Otherwise, you might, break it or rip the wire out, whatever. So the next thing you have to do, you have to remove the A-pillars. That I explain how to do in my headliner video, if you want, to see how it's done. But basically, you just need to stick a screwdriver not under the clips, but near the clips, and just pry up, and it just comes right out. That's all you have to do to remove the A-pillar trim. Again, if you want to see that in action, check out the headliner series. That's where I show you how to do it. The door cards, ignore that. I'm doing some other thing that's tangent to removing the dashboard, so you don't have to remove the door cards. Don't worry about that. Underneath, you have to remove the kick panel that goes here in the onboard diagnostic plug. I also show that in the instrument cluster video. The glove box you don't have to remove, but you do have to remove the light. Again, otherwise, you might rip the wiring out. So you have to at least remove the light, but you can leave the glove box in. So the center console, you do have to remove this. Obviously, there's a bunch of wiring here that needs to be done. The amount of disassembly is... Actually, I would recommend you remove the whole thing, because the center console latches onto here, and you won't be able to remove the dashboard without removing the center console. Center console, that's a separate video. It's not too difficult. Basically, to summarize, you pry up. I mean, you remove the shifter bezel. You remove the shifter knob. You pry up the door switches. You start on this side, and then you pry that side. And then there's 4 bolts that hold the whole thing together. There's 2 that go down here. You open up the deep part of the box there, and you remove the little... They're hidden under the carpet, but they've got little cutouts that you can remove and access the screw. I have to clean that up because it's nasty. But yeah, once we're here, we're down to a couple of essentially housekeeping tasks. I'll show you in this video how to remove the lights, the parking brake, the kick panel under there, because there's some screws we have to access. There's also some screws up here behind these little covers, so you got to pop those up. There's another one on the other side as well. And finally, right here on the side, we've got a screw holding the dashboard. There's another one on the other side. I'm going to show you all of that.
To remove the light switch, first pull the knob off. Then use a large socket to unscrew the nut. Finally, twist the assembly around to release it from the dashboard. Next, remove the screws holding the parking brake release latch.
Oh, I see how it is. Okay. So to remove the parking brake handle, it's exactly the same as to remove the hood release latch. Basically, the handle, it's got a little knob that goes in here. You just twist the wire over until it lines up with this mark over here, and it comes right out. So basically, I'm not going to show you how to like remove them because that might be pretty boring, but I will, however, show you all the vacuum pipes so you have a reference of how they're supposed to go. So I haven't replaced them yet. So let's just take a look at what we have. What's that one? That's the recirculate. The recirculate has the green and blue, I believe. Yeah, that's green and blue. And that is just solid red. The windshield defrost has orange and white, I think that is, and yellow and green and yellow. So that's these two. That's how they go. Then down in the footwell, so we have, I believe that's, what is that? Is that the footwell flap? Or maybe those are two separate flaps. I don't know. But we have red, and what color is that? Red and blue. And we have green and white. And then on the bottom, that I believe is the footwell. Let's get a focus going. We have red and white and green and orange. And over on the other side, we have a single vacuum pod on the driver's side. It's hard to get to, so you might want to remove the seats just to have a easier access, but it's teed off right there down the middle. It's got a little T connection, and it's also the red and blue line. As here you have the vacuum distributor, essentially, that plugs in from the climate control unit, and it just supplies vacuum to each element. This top green pipe, that's the one that comes from the little vacuum block in the engine compartment, and then all of these are your vacuum pods. Alright, tips and tricks on removing all the vacuum pods easily. So first, the recirculate one. So actually, one easy way of removing the connections is you just gently put in a screwdriver and then you twist the screwdriver. That pops these off. It helps you out, but I also just like pulling on them because it's safer. You know, you don't want to accidentally break one of these, then you're gonna have a really bad day. But anyway, the recirculate one is a little bit tricky. It's definitely the tricky one, the trickiest one of all of them. To remove it, you have to take a little screwdriver, and you have to jam it. You have to jam it right there, and then you just pry on it backwards to open up the locking tab. And then you can twist it like that, and it comes out. The little arm in the back, the little linkage that actually like opens the flap up, the way to remove that is you just tilt it a little bit, and then you can unhook it. So you have to do that first, then you can remove this. I'll show you exactly why you have to, where you have to pry. So here's the old one. And see on the old one right there, so it's going to be like this inside the dashboard, and this locking tab right here, that's what you want to open up. You want to pry that open, and then it just twists right up and you can remove it. So of course it helps to remove the airbag and also the cross member that goes down here, just to get extra access, and the air vent, you'll need to remove that. You just pull those apart. Nothing hard there. To do all the pods on this side, first you have to remove the top one. So the top one, you pry this cover open. That gives you access to the linkage, which can pop off. Then this just slides upwards. Then you can do the next two on the bottom. Those are not super hard. Just make sure you don't mix them up. You have to remove this one first because the linkage connects for the ones on the bottom connect behind this one here. So this one has to be out of the way. And then finally, the footwell one, it's a little bit trickier. So again, I'll show you on the old one how to do it. So right here, I've got the footwell flap, and basically it's going to be oriented like this. And on the bottom back here, there's going to be a screw in one of the two holes. You simply have to unscrew that, remove it, and then you don't remove the linkage from inside because the linkage is all hidden. So basically you'll have this little, it's gonna have a little clip on this at the end that holds onto the linkage. You open this clip up, and then that lets you remove the linkage easily. So that's how to replace this one. Reassemble in reverse order on that side. And then finally there's one last one left on this side of the heater case. For that one, there's nothing hard here. Just keep in mind there's actually 2 spots it can go into. You have to make sure you get it in the right spot, because if you keep trying to put it in the wrong spot, first of all, the linkage is going to be not aligned correctly with the actual like lever. And also, it's not going to want to click into place, so you can't actually fit it in the other spot. So just make sure it's in the correct spot, and it's easy to miss because there seems to be a dedicated spot for it, but turns out there's one right next to it, and that's the one you have to hit. Okay, I haven't filmed this part, but basically one thing that I've been sitting on for a very long time, and I took the opportunity to do right away, is installing the wooden strip on top of the dashboard. I've always wanted to have one. I found a very nice one on eBay a while ago, and I've just been sitting on it for a while. But now I've actually installed it. It's not the factory original install. It's a little bit ghetto rigged, so to speak. And I mean, I'm not gonna show how I got to that point, but I will show you the end result. So this is the bottom side of the dashboard. And I don't know what the factory mounting system is, but essentially what I've done, I've reused some of the clips that I got with the thing, and I basically just broke the clips in half and bolted it to the dashboard. And over here I actually used a Canadian dime. Go ahead, you can focus, silly camera. There you go. So I used a Canadian dime right there, and I just drilled through the dashboard a few holes that line up with the studs on the trim. And yeah, so here I have another clip rather than a dime. But essentially that's it. It's not a pretty solution, but it does work. And I mean, it only has to be pretty from the front if you think about it. From the back it can be whatever the hell you want. Of course, that means I had to remove the... Let's crank up the brightness here. I had to remove the air vents, and the way you do that, actually, it's pretty simple. They're essentially held on by... They're held on, they're not screws, it's just melted plastic. The plastic just gets melted to the dashboard. So you just drill where all the spots are, and then you can remove it. Of course, you also have to remove this little mass-loaded vinyl thing, but that's just stapled on. So you rip it off, and then you can staple it back on when you're finished. Of course, on the actual dashboard itself, I've marked out exactly where the vents go so that everything lines up correctly once I'm done. I'm going to use an adhesive to glue them back on. I mean, what else would you use university textbooks for? And here's what the dashboard looks like once you've put the vents and the sound insulation back. So the vents, just glue them on. I used some of the black grate goop. It's a wonderful adhesive, works very well, but it takes a long time to set. But once that's done, it's very, very strong. And you do that first, and then after you do the sound insulation. And yeah, here you just staple it. Can't see any of the staples, but actually there's one right there. But yeah, basically just staple it in a few places. You know, make sure it's on properly and it's not flapping around in the breeze. So basically, what you got to be wary of is when you put the dashboard in, you have to make sure that the vents right here, they're well, not aligned, but I would want to say pushed all the way back. These vents back here that go to the windshield defrost, that they sit squarely on the heater case. And the best thing to do that is just to straddle the transmission tunnel and push with your hands on both until they pop in. Once that happens, the whole dashboard is just going to slide down into place, and you won't have any trouble putting the screws back in, particularly those on top right there. So how did I fuck up exactly? Well, as you may have noticed, my clock spring is removed, and you'll actually see me put that back in and explain how to remove it in the steering wheel video. But basically, what happened here was I realized that I screwed up and that I didn't have those things aligned, the vents. So basically, I tried removing the dashboard and I broke my cruise control lever. However, in a fortunate stroke of luck, my local junkyard had a 97 E-Class, which has the exact same part number, so I picked up a new cruise control switch, and you'll see me replace that also. I mean, I said they were pretty tough, but, you know, this is the end phase of the project. I got pretty excited. I removed the dashboard a little bit too fast, and, well, you know, ended up with a manky freaking cruise control stock. But anyway, that's all good. It only cost me $16, so not too bad. It sucks breaking stuff that wasn't broken before, but oh well.